This is Walking Through Mark 13. Welcome. Mark chapter 8, verse 11 is the actual place in the reading of the book of Mark that we will resume in just a moment. Mark chapter 8, verse 11. Okay, let's begin. Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, obviously Jesus being referenced, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly, I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation." And he left them, and getting in the boat again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread. They did not have more than one loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, "Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." And they reasoned among themselves, saying, "It's because we've no bread." But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, "Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take up? They said to him, 12. Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said, 7. So he said to them, "How is it you do not understand?" 2 or 3 things here that I'd like to bring out for thought, and then we will continue in the reading. First of all, notice how people, we'd say in our very common way of wording it, just don't get it. And you can see the deep consternation, the deep, what's the word Mark uses? He was deeply grieved about it. Well, it just says sighed deeply. He sighed deeply in his spirit about it. This was not just a mild, slight, on the surface kind of disappointment. I think I mentioned in a previous walk through Mark how Mark says that he marveled about certain things. And I say, wow, that'd make a great sermon, you know. In fact, I think over here somewhere on my desk, I have a note to do a lesson about things that marvel God. I don't know what I'll title it exactly, but it'll probably be something like that. Things that marvel God, or things God marvels at, you know. And but anyway, here's something that causes God to be so deeply disappointed in. And in this particular case, it's people looking for a sign. A sign. There's no sign given. He could have probably also said no more sign given than what's already being provided that you don't see. What they're looking for beyond the miracles, the feeding of the thousands, the other miracles that either one they saw or they heard about. At least you can imagine words getting around when you have such multitudes of people. And it's just not good enough. That's not good enough for them. We got to see a sign. Maybe they're looking for a sign from heaven. Don't you do a miracle, but bring it straight out of the sky. Is that what they're looking for? But anyway, whether it is something beyond what he's providing or something instead of what he's providing, it's just quite disappointing to the Lord to see people so stubborn in their resistance to the truth and into him and what he's doing. Also, an incident. Once again, Mark writes a lot about activities or stories of actions and things that Jesus did or encountered. And in this case, a story is given about them crossing back over the Sea of Galilee and having not with them anything much to eat. They had 1 loaf of bread, but basically they didn't bring enough or hardly any for them to eat on the way across. And it provided an occasion for Jesus to make a spiritual lesson out of this and to direct it in that way. And he said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And they get off, of course. They're so carnal minded, so physical minded, so earthly minded. And of course, right at that particular time, what are we going to eat minded? And he directs their thoughts to a higher place. Priorities, if you will. You may recall earlier, this is back quite a few lessons ago, how word got to his family, like his mom and brothers, sisters. Jesus wasn't eating enough or well enough, and he was so busy in the service of God and in his father's business and such like that he just didn't take time for that. He would eventually. He always, I say always, he would make time to eat and drink, I'm sure, from time to time. But priorities were first of all the kingdom and God's righteousness, which he taught other people, but he also practiced. He wasn't just one who said, you ought to do, but I don't. But we see him in practice as well as in teaching, advocating, don't lose your priorities. Don't ever take things of the kingdom and righteousness, demote them for the promotion of what are we going to eat? What are we going to wear? And in this particular case, did anybody bring anything to eat while we're crossing over the lake? So he warned them about the doctrine and the teachings and so forth of the Pharisees and Herod. One more thing, and we'll continue reading. And he calls it leaven. A leaven is that which inflates or makes dough bigger, rises. And he indicates you need to be careful about these Pharisees, and he even mentions Herod or the Herodians. The things they do or say, probably more than do, but both really, might, at least on the surface, appear to be innocent enough or small or insignificant. Be careful. Little things have a way of expanding, and it becomes infectious and spreads to other people, and even in your own mind and heart, what started off small becomes a real big problem. And so warning goes out. Okay, continuing the reading, this is verse number 22. Then he came rather to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to teach him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. When he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. Then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up, and he was restored and saw everything clearly. Then he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into town nor tell anyone in the town. What's up with this? One thing is for sure. It was not like a whoops moment, like, sorry about that. Oops, I didn't quite get the miracle done that I intended. This was deliberate. Jesus, nothing is impossible for him. I can tell someone to go home, your daughter as well, never see her, never touch her, never any of that. And other times, though, he does make quite the visual impact of what he's doing with various things done, in this particular case, spitting and touching him and so forth. But here's the point, and I think you already know where I'm headed with this. He does it in two stages. He heals him partway, gives him, we'd say, blurry vision. I can see people walking, but they're blurry. They look just like trees walking. That's, by the way, that's about how my artwork looks. The stick figure. If I'm not, I don't have any artistic skills, and if I'm asked to draw a person, it probably looks like a tree walking. But in this particular case. And it's almost instantly, meaning it's not like, well, go home, put some medicine in your eyes, maybe it'll get better in the morning. But rather, it's just in stages for a purpose and reason, and he does not explain why. It was not, though, a mistake. It wasn't like, oops, I didn't quite get that done. Let me try that again. It was a reason or purpose for him doing so, and we're left to wonder. We're left to wonder, what's up with that? And I don't guess we'll ever know. And he doesn't tell. I can speculate, of course, and I always am hesitant to do that, but it could be that it's just for the sake of the man getting the sight. I have said before that he did things like, touching people, touching their eyes, sticking fingers in their ears, and that kind of thing, for the effect it had on the person receiving it or the people witnessing it. Not that he had to do that to get the miracle done. Maybe that's the case here. I'm just speculating. Maybe it was, for the sake of the man receiving the sight, it's in two stages, or if there was anybody witnessing it. Okay, let's read one more section and then we'll stop. 27, I think, is where we pick up. Now Jesus and his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi, and on the road he asked disciples, saying to them, "Who do men say that I am?" So they answered, "John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered and said to him, "You're the Christ." Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. He's continually doing this to a lot of people. I didn't comment on the previous miracle of the blind man being made to see, but he told him, don't go tell anybody. Nobody. Don't tell anyone. And here, his own apostles, his disciples that are with him basically every day, even they, when they answer correctly, or at least Peter does, indicates, "You're the Christ." Well, that's true. Now don't go tell anybody. It goes to show how this conclusion that Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah, the Christ, the Savior, the atonement provided of God for man's sins, is and was and is meant to be developed by faith. And various things are done, various things that are said, various things that you witness in him, just by example, are meant to draw within your mind and heart, hopefully, faith that you are the Christ sent into the world to save us. And don't know if that's the reason why, but he does it over and over and over again, telling people, don't go tell anybody. Now, some people go and tell anyway, but and that somewhat has to do with free will, I guess, because I suggested back a long time ago in our Walking Through Mark series how demons, if they were forbidden to speak, I'm going to think they couldn't. If he says, "You do not go tell anybody who I am," they couldn't talk. They couldn't speak that. They were forbidden. I don't think that was a suggestion. I don't think it was a request. I think it was a commandment, an order. But with people, we see it was told and commanded and ordered, but sometimes not complied with. And goes to show, of course, how God works with us to do his will, but with your will being incorporated into it. God's not forcing anybody to believe in Jesus, forcing anybody to go to heaven. This is going to have to be something that man, with his power of faith and free will, responds to what God provides and offers and says. Okay, that's a good place to stop. Thank you.